Hi everyone, welcome to this video. In this video, you will learn about how to plan to shoot a subject from a drone. And obviously the example that we're using here is this is an image that I captured when I was in Germany. This is a castle that's high up in a mountain. And I thought this would be a good example for me to share with you guys because, there's various different terrains and, weather conditions, because obviously this is winter time as well. The sun is rising and so on and so forth. So I thought it would be very important for me to share an example that has a lot of details in there in terms of how I planned to film the subject. So let's go ahead and get that started. So the name of this castle, which I'm going to attempt to say it properly, is Neuschwanstein. Anyways, I'm pretty bad at saying that. Anyways, it's a castle in Germany, and I was in the area, so I thought I'd plan a day trip to visit and capture it. So I typed it up in Google. I found the location, and obviously these are images here. So I went ahead and looked at some of the images, see what shot I saw. There's obviously lots of images because this is a popular tourist destination. In terms of how I planned it, I knew that I wanted to have a similar angle because this obviously is a close-up shot of the castle and the mountains behind it. And I was happy that I was in Germany in wintertime, so I knew that it would just turn out to be even more amazing. So here's what I do. I use obviously Google Map. Google Map gives you a good terrain of how where the subject is located, the proximity of it, and what is surrounded by it. But I don't really use this layer. I actually use the satellite view, and the satellite view gives me a really good understanding of the surrounding of this castle, particularly obviously the houses that are here. And this seems to be mountains. So what I like to do is when I see mountains, I like to go in 3D mode because that gives me a good understanding of a picture frame that I'd like to have my drone capture. And obviously I can already tell that this is a nice altitude view, and I wouldn't want to have an angle. I wouldn't want to shoot my drone from this side to capture here because I want the mountains to be in the background. So what I do right away is to rotate the image, and now I can see a pretty good perspective of mountains, and there's the lake. And if I zoom out a little bit, I just want to see the surrounding area. And obviously Google doesn't really do the best of jobs in terms of outlining the terrain, but it's better than nothing. So one of the things that I look forward to is without any complications of interference by electricity poles or anything like that, what would be an ideal angle that I would like to get in my shot? That's the first question that I ask. And the answer for me for this subject here is an ideal shot would be, I have the lake in the background because that's quite nice. And I want the mountains to be there because I see that there's mountain terrain. So it'd be good to actually balance by having the subject of the castle in the foreground while the background shows the mountains, similar to this view, which is what you see here. And what that means is that my drone needs to be somewhere around here facing that way, so then I can get the castle and I can get the backdrop of the lake and the mountain. So in order for me to do that, I know that my drone, and I'm flying a DJI Phantom 4 Pro, and generally I fly the Phantom series when the Phantom 5 comes out and so on and so forth. I know that the range is generally 5 to 6 kilometers. And good news here is that this is a pretty remote region. It's not urban dense. Obviously this is mostly just, I don't want to say farmland, but you get the point, which means there isn't going to be very strong frequency interference, which means I can fly my drone really from any of these remote areas. I don't need to be just under the mountain or here because this seems to be a commercial area. This obviously seems to be someone's house, and I ideally look for a road. So if I can find a road, and if this is a major road and this seems to be smaller streets that I can go to, which means and what I did, and I'm going to speak to how I planned it, and then I will tell you where I flew from. Where I planned to fly my drone when I was planning it was somewhere on this pathway. And my initial plan was to take this road, go down one of these streets, evaluate it to see if I can park my car somewhere, and then fly it accordingly. And what I ended up doing, and before I tell you how I did it, what I also do, which is very important, is I also measure the distance from where I fly to the actual subject just to make sure that it's, comfortably within the range of the drone. So what I do here is I'm going to go ahead and click on right, and I'm going to click on measure distance, and I'm going to click there. How did I use this before? I think I click on the map to trace the path you want to measure. So I think I just did here. Oh, come on. Distance to here. Oh, there you go. I think they changed this up. Okay. So 2 pinpoints, and I'm actually going to, it's giving me the numbers on that pinpoint, so I'm going to put the first one like right here, and then I'm going to put the second one here. So now this is telling me it's about 900 meters, which is about 1 kilometer. And given the terrain that we're in, 1 kilometer is not an issue for my drone. So obviously you have to know the range of your drone. If you have a Phantom 4 or DJI Mavic Pro, these drones are obviously a lot more advanced, and they can comfortably fly within 1 kilometer, and there won't be any noise in terms of video stream downlink, in terms of the reception and the communication between the controller and the onboarding unit. So one kilometer, I was quite comfortable with. So this is obviously a tool that I like to use often, and make sure that you do measure, so you're not just going and, when you're in the action, you're kind of, uncertain about how much distance you have to cover. This tool here, when you measure, really gives you that sense of confidence that, within 1 kilometer, if I'm far away, I should be able to comfortably capture. So I wanted to make sure I help you understand that this is a pretty cool tool that I utilize all the time. So this is the plan. And, my initial plan was to fly from here. What ended up happening was that when I drove down this path and I kind of explored the area, so again, tip for you is when you plan something, it's good. When you go and execute on it, what you should do is try to explore the area to see where you can comfortably park your car, and see if there's a better line of sight that you can get. Because when I came here, I noticed that, even though this castle is up in the air, these trees were a little bit taller than I thought. So then what I did was I just drove up this path, and it gave me a nice point here, that's pit stop, where I could just kind of park my car on the side. And then I just flew my drone from here to the terrain area where you see that I captured this image right here. And if you see this image, my drone was flying right here. And I wanted to make sure that I was, I flew in close enough to the castle where I was still, this looks pretty close. I did zoom into the photo a little bit. Obviously, you don't want to get too close to the castle because you want to be respectful and not get into any trouble. So you want to fly safely. So flying from here, my drone was just hovering in this area, and then I pointed towards the castle, and then I obviously got a lot of shots. Now, in terms of shooting, the angle, the positioning of the framing and stuff like that, that is not something that I'm going to discuss here. This video is purely about helping you understand how I plan, and I primarily use Google Map for 2 things. Just to recap what I've communicated here, I use Google Map to plan the angle and kind of how, where I'm going to position the drone. So that's number 1. And I knew that no matter where I'm going to end up physically standing, I want my drone to be here because that's the best hero shot, if I could call it. So I knew that my drone wanted to be, my drone should be here. So that's the first thing that you should establish. Any subject that you're capturing, your ultimate question should be, where should my drone end up, and see if that's safe enough. So for me, the answer was yes. This is an empty area. There's no harm, or my drone is not going to be in harm, and I'm not going to annoy people. This is just obviously empty terrain. So this was good. And the second was, is it safe for me to fly in this area? And the answer also to that was yes, because just visually looking at it here, I don't see any, electric cable lines, anything that would prevent me from flying. There obviously isn't any, there aren't any, prisons or government buildings or, anything of that sort. So this is a pretty clear open area. So with all that in mind, I concluded that I can safely film and shoot the subject, and now it's just a matter of finding the right time of the day and the right weather, so on and so forth. So I hope this gave you a good understanding of how I plan, and I hope this gave you some tips. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.